Good evening and welcome to our class today. We are going to be looking at how candidates can handle the word processing question in the KCSE exam. So this is targeted for high school students looking forward to the computer studies exams. Now, we will begin by looking at how to handle. And for us to begin, this is going to be a form of a preparation guide, kind of a checklist where you are going to see the items you need to prepare in for you to be successful in the exam. Now, the first thing a candidate needs to tackle is the candidate needs to have good speed in typing. So, all word processing questions will expect the candidate to type some text. Majorly, you will have a full page of text that you'll be required to type, and then later on, questions shall be asked in the form of editing and formatting features that you need to apply. And so we need to ask ourselves what the good typing speed for a candidate is, and let's do some maths. Now, I asked Google on the number of words in a typical page in word processing, and there you can see the result. When you have a 1-inch margin and a 12 point, that is to mean the size of the text is 12 and the Times New Roman font is applied, then you will have 500 words if the spacing is single, and you'll have 250 words if the spacing is double. Now we will go with the 500 words, that is the maximum, so that we prepare for the worst. When you are preparing for exam, you expect the best, but you prepare for the worst. So to be able to tackle 500 words in a page, take it that you have 1 hour to answer the word processing question. So in paper 2, you have 2 questions, and the whole paper takes 2 hours 30 minutes. I usually advise my candidates to use an hour for each question, and then the remaining 30 minutes for printing, saving, and any other activity that is related to the exam. So the word question therefore will have 1 hour, and it is 50 marks. Now you usually have 1 page of text to type. In this case, we are taking that 1 page to have 500 words. So with 50 marks, half of it, roughly half of it, some 20 to 25 marks, will be dedicated to the typing. And so as a good candidate, having 50 marks with 1 hour, that is roughly 1 mark per minute. Sawa. With 1 mark per minute, and roughly the typing is taking 25 marks, that means you need 25 minutes to be used for the typing. Now, if you have 25 minutes and you are typing 500 words, what speed should you type in? So you take 500 divided by 25. What do you arrive at? 20 words per minute. So the best speed for a candidate is at least 20 words per minute. If you can go above that, well and good, it will be better for you. So that is it for the typing. And next, after typing, in any word processing exam, expect to get questions related to editing and formatting features. So you need to know the editing and formatting features. So let's look at first the editing. And I hope you know the definition of editing. That is just the process you take to correct errors so that your document has no errors. So the first thing you need to know is how to highlight text. That is block operations. We use either the mouse or the keyboard. So you need to highlight text for you to apply any other features on the text. The next thing is spelling and grammar. You need to check your document to make sure you have no spelling errors, you have no grammar errors. And then next we have find and replace. In some instances, you'll get a question asking you to go through your document and make sure you replace a certain word with a different one. And let's say in that same document, the word appears, let's say 10 times. So the feature to use is what? Find and replace. We have thesaurus, that is the dictionary for synonyms and what? antonyms. And then we have copying and moving. You'll be asked, for example, copy paragraph 1 and make it appear at the end of the document, or move the third paragraph to the end of the document. So copying and moving is one of the editing features a candidate must be knowledgeable about. We have deleting, we have insert mode, we have type over mode, among others. So the list is not exhaustive. I hope you have your notes. That is just a brief list to show you the editing features that you can be tested on. After editing, we have formatting. And what are some of the features in formatting? Number one, we have text formatting. Now, text formatting will majorly be centered around the home tab in the font group. I hope you can see the font group has items such as the font type, the font size, we have the case, we have bolding, italics, underline, strike through, subscript, superscript, the font color, and so on and so forth. So that is text formatting. You need to understand those features for text formatting. Next, after text formatting, we have paragraph formatting. Again, still in the home tab under the paragraph group, you will get the features to apply to paragraphs. For instance, you have your bullets and numbering, you have multi-level lists, you have indentation, you have the alignments, you have the line spacing, you have the shading, borders, and such. So that is paragraph formatting, not exhaustive, but a candidate should at least know those basic formatting features for paragraphs. Next, we also have the formatting for the page and document. That is page and document formatting, where you have things like the margins, orientation, the size of the page, inserting the columns in your text, dealing with breaks, the numbers, the hyphenation, and such like. So we started with the text formatting, then you have paragraph formatting, you have page and document formatting. More formatting features include things like inserting of watermarks, which you find under the design tab. You have the page color, the page borders, those ones you find them under design. More about formatting, things like headers, footers, page numbers. You have word art. Where do you find them? Under the insert tab. So that is just a rough overview of formatting features that you have in word processing. We mentioned text formatting, paragraph formatting, page and document. Are we together? Good. Now next, after editing and formatting, we also deal with shapes and graphics. So you can also be tested on shapes and graphics. That is basically drawing. Can you come up with a drawing of a hut, a basic house? In some previous exam, although that was in DTP, but the same can be done in Word, candidates were asked to draw a map of a town. So the map of a town contained things like a church, a mall, roads, trees. So using the basic shapes in word processing, can you come up with those drawings? So you'll be given, let's say, a drawing or a diagram, which you are required to replicate in your document. And so to deal with shapes and graphics, there are things you will need to know about them. For example, you need to know how to draw the shapes, where to find them, draw them, and then resize them, that is expand them or reduce their size. You need to know how to rotate, how to crop, how to copy them, move them, grouping, how you can fill them with colors and patterns, and then the outlines of the shapes, the line around the shape, you can maybe make it thicker or thinner, or change the color, or make it dotted. Are we together? Yes, we have what we call wrapping text. Wrapping text, that is when you insert this object in your document and your document has text, how is the text going to arrange itself around the object, that is wrapping text. And lastly, in my list, but not an exhaustive one, the order. Order means when you're using shapes and graphics, you can have one shape or a graphic coming in front of others. So you can arrange your shapes and graphics so that you determine which one is coming at the front and which one is going at the back. So that's just a brief list of the things you do with shapes and graphics. And then we move on to look at where you find them. So when you go to your word processor window, in the ribbon, for you to insert shapes and pictures and such like, you will find them under the insert tab. So in the insert tab is where you find your shapes, your pictures, plus other graphics and objects that you may want to draw in a document. Now, elsewhere, once you have drawn an object or you have inserted a graphic, you will have the drawing tools appearing as part of the ribbon. So when you click on the format under the drawing tools, you have many other controls that you can apply to your shapes and graphics. For example, you have a list of shapes, you can edit the shapes, you can draw text boxes, you can have various styles applied to your shapes. You can have the arranging in terms of bringing forward, sending backward, rotating, alignments, sizes. All of them are in one tab. So to make your work easy so that you are not moving around between your tabs. So that is, you need to know how to work with shapes and what? Graphics. Are we together? Yes. Number 4, in word processing, for you to be ready for the exam, you will need to know how to work with tables. You need to know how to work with tables. The tables contain columns, rows, cells, right? So you need to know how to create them, how to add or delete the rows and the columns, how to do merging of cells, splitting of cells, how to format your borders and to apply shading. And then you can also resize rows and columns. You can apply text direction. Do you understand text direction? You find that in some tables, the text is horizontal and you can make them vertical. Have you ever seen such? So that is applied using the text direction feature. And I'll show you where you find it. And then lastly, an area where many candidates ignore is how to perform what? Calculations. Although it's a very simple feature. So let's look at briefly where you find these features. Now, when you have your word processor window open, in the insert tab, you will find the table command, which when you click, you will receive that grid of boxes that you can use to insert a table. To insert a table, you just move your mouse pointer over that grid, and the ones that are in, is it orange or yellow? Orange. So the ones that are in orange are the ones you have highlighted. So you look at the top there, you have the number of columns and the rows. So you highlight according to the number of columns and rows you need, and then you click and the table will be inserted in your document. Under that, you can also insert a table by specifying the number of rows and the what? Columns. And you can also draw a table manually, and you can import an Excel spreadsheet into Word. Now that you are Form 3s, you've already covered spreadsheets, you understand what they are. You can import a table from spreadsheet into Word. Are we together? Now there is that inactive option just under draw table. Do you see it? That is convert text to table. Can you see that? So that means another way of dealing with tables in a word processor is you convert text into a table. You convert text into a table. So those are various ways you can come up with a table into a word processor document. And apart from inserting the table, there are various other things you can do with the table, like adding and deleting rows and columns, merging cells, splitting cells, and others, which I know we will demonstrate as time goes by. Now, the very important one that I've mentioned students mostly ignore is how to perform what? Calculations. Now, once you insert a table in a Word document, again, in the menu ribbon, you will have the table tools appearing. Okay? So it does not appear when there is no table. It only appears when there is a what? A table. So under table tools, you have design and you have what? Layout. So in layout, you go to the extreme right where you have formula. Can you see formula? Now when you click formula, this dialog box you can see on the screen will appear where you can type a formula such as sum in brackets above. That is, in a column, you want maybe to have the total at the last cell in that column. In that formula box, you will type equals sum above. So above is in brackets. Are we together? I hope while we were learning that in class, you paid attention. If not, we will still cover it in the practice papers we will be doing. Now next, we have the mail merging feature. This is an area where an examiner can decide to test mail merging as part of your exam. So mail merging is a feature where you have two documents, that is the main document and a data source, that you combine to come up with a merged document. So what is the process? Number one is you come up with a what? A main document. Now the main document is typed in a word processor. Let's say you have a letter that you want to send to 10 people. So the body of the letter is typed as the main document. After the main document, typing it and saving it, the next document to make is the what? The data source. So I usually advise my students to use a spreadsheet program for the data source because it makes the work simple. So let's say you have your document, you have your letter that you want to send to how many people? 10. The letter itself has been typed and saved in the word processor. Your 10 people have their different names, their different addresses, their different towns. Sindio? So those details, the name, address, town, and so on, that will form the recipient address, are now typed in a spreadsheet program. Okay? So in that spreadsheet program, you have a column for names, column for addresses, a column for town. So you type your details there for your 10 people, and then you save that spreadsheet. So you have a main document saved, you have a data source saved, then you go back to your main document, and in the mailings tab, we have a tab called mailings. In the mailings tab, you go to insert merge fields. I hope we will demonstrate that right after we go through our presentation, and I'll show you quickly. So once you go to the mailings tab, you insert merge fields. Inserting merge fields means you are linking the columns in your data source to the positions that you want them to appear in your main document. Are we together? So you are bringing the data from the data source into the main document. That is what we call inserting merge fields. So that process is called merging. And then when you finish merging, you come up with a new document we call what? A merged document. So the merged document is now going to contain a letter for each of your 10 recipients. So you started with typing one letter, and then you combined it with the addresses, the names, the towns from your data source for your 10 recipients, and you end up with 10 letters, each one of them having the address of each of your recipients. I hope that is clear. So that is the mail merging process. It's just a simple process, 3 steps, essentially 3 steps: main document creation, data source creation, and merging. You end up with your merged document. Are we together? So that is one area where a student can really score. Very simple procedure, can really score. Lastly, after doing all those, always the candidate will be expected to print their work. So to print your work, you can either go to the file menu and then click print, or you can use the shortcut key Control plus P. Now the print dialog box will appear as you can see on the screen, where number one, you will need to select the printer that is connected to your computer. The printer connected to your computer. Number two, you'll need to specify the number of copies you would wish to print. And then the rest of the settings include things like whether you want to print the whole document or just a few pages from that document. And if your printer allows double-sided printing, you also have a choice to select. Another choice is to select the orientation of the paper, the size of the paper, the margins, and whether you want maybe to print your document in such a way that several pages can be put on one sheet of paper, colloquially known as compressing, so that you use fewer papers. So those are the settings you can have while printing, but normally for exam printing, the only options you will be needed to make are the printer you are using and click print. Okay, so once your document is ready, just click file and then print, and then select the correct printer you are using, click what? Print. And the miracle will happen, your paper will come out of the printer having your document. So those are areas where candidates must practice so that you gain the skill, so that when the exam comes, you are ready to go. In the remaining 5 minutes, we are going to go over how you need to manage your time during an exam. The reason is the exam is timed. The whole exam, paper 2, takes 2 hours 30 minutes. And because it has 2 questions, I advise students to only take 1 hour per question. The remaining 30 minutes tulisema ni ya nini? Printing, saving on the CD, and any other, stapling and whatever. Are we together? So how can you manage your time so that you finish your work in time? Because if you don't finish, then you lose out on the marks, right? Now, number one, I advise students to take their first 5 minutes of your 1 hour to just peruse through the question. If there is text to be typed, just go over that text. Try to identify the features that you will be required to apply. For example, identify the formatting that is applied, where you have bolding, where you have underline, things like those. So just go over, try to identify so that when you start typing, you know what will be expected at the end of the exam. Now, after going over whatever you will be expected to type, also read through the questions that follow the typing so that you know what to expect after typing. After you finish typing, what will be expected of you so that you prepare psychologically. So 5 minutes is enough. Just go over the text to be typed and then go over the questions. Now, in the next 20 minutes, take the next 20 minutes like we calculated. You remember? Take the next 20 minutes to type. So make sure you have your stopwatch, or you can use the clock on the computer. Time yourself. Don't just type. Time yourself so that you are within the given time. 20 minutes enough for typing. And when you are typing, just type. Don't bother going back to correct. Maybe you typed the wrong spelling. Don't bother. Just type plain. Don't even try formatting. Maybe you want the letter to be capital because it is a name, or you have seen in the paper you have an area that is bold. You also want to bold as you type. Don't do that. For you to have good typing speed, for you to remain within the 20 minutes for typing, just type plain text. Are we together? Once you finish, you will now come back to read through, make the corrections, make the formatting. Sawa sawa? So type plain text without formatting, without correcting mistakes. That will help you to finish within the time. Another thing that will help you to finish within the 20 minutes is, because you are reading from your script as you type on the computer, read a whole sentence or a phrase and then type the whole of it, so that your eyes are not moving word by word on the paper to the computer word by word. You will waste a lot of time. So make sure you are typing sentence by sentence. Don't read one word and type and then read the next word and type. Type sentence by sentence. The next item, that is after you make sure you have typed, the next 15 minutes, take it to proofread and do the formatting. Remember, when you are typing, we were not doing the formatting and the editing. Just type plainly. After doing that, take the next 15 minutes to go through your work, proofread, correct your mistakes, and apply the formatting features. And then lastly, number 4, to make your 1 hour, answer now the questions that come after the typing. The subsequent questions after the typing can now be answered in 20 minutes. That is enough time for the rest of the questions. Now, the questions have to be answered in the order in which they are asked. So do not distort the order of the questions while you're answering. So answer one question, move to the next question and answer it, move to the next question and answer. And again, another thing to take care of is be keen with the questions that will require you to save the document using a different file name at a certain stage. So examiners will have the candidate to save the document with a particular file name at a particular stage, so that at the end of the exam, you need to have several documents saved with different names that will contain different stages of your work. Now, after doing that, you are now set to go. After going through this checklist, make sure you have practiced for all of these things, and you'll be sure to perform well in your word processing exam. So that is it for today. We will do more in another video. Stay creative, stay learning, practice makes perfect, and see you next time.